I'm very happy to
Okay.
open our new colloquium, and thank you very much that you are with us. And I invite now Dusan for the next
Yeah.
invitation. Dusan?
Violeta, we have a pleasure again to have wonderful speakers and also to have Klaus, our president, who usually gives a beautiful introduction to the colloquia. So, Klaus, I'm asking you again to say a few words about
Hey,
presentations today.
yeah, thank you, Dusan, again, and you both as organizers, as every time. Now, my impression is this evening we have two talks, but more or less on the same time period and more or less on a very similar topics. There is first a talk from China and about China, and it concerns history, politics, and national identity with respect to music. And I learned that the talk relates to a quotation of Mao Zedong. And that quotation says that foreign things should serve China. And such a foreign thing is a piano of Western music, and it should be used as a propaganda instrument for proletarian revolution. So to propagate a kind of proletarian art for peasants and proletarians. But of course, we, as a European Academy of Arts, are no longer interested in proletarian revolution or the famous cultural revolution, but we are interested in cultural diplomacy. And so I think it is an interesting link to the next talk. The next talk concerns also the same period, the first part of the 20th century, namely with respect to one of the great Western revolutionary composers in that time, besides Schönberg and Stravinsky, that was Bela Bartok. And it is interesting, and for me it was interesting to read that Bela Bartok was also motivated by some national movement. There, I think, is a little bit of similarity to the Chinese situation in that time. And that in Europe it was a time after the decay of the Austrian and Hungarian monarchy, decay in different countries with different national movements. And Bela Bartok was also touched by that with the tradition of Transylvanian peasants. He tried also to find a musical expression in something not for proletarian tradition, but for an expression, musical expression of the common people, peasants, and with respect to a national identity. But I think what Bela Bartok, and I like to learn more about that, makes so great for modern music is that that was not only the national identity he was interested in, but with that he find a kind of musical expression to simple melodies, to simple structures, simplicity in some sense, and then he generalized it to a new universal approach in modern music. But I'm no expert in that field, and so I'm very eager to learn more about that. But in the end, as president of the European Academy, I like to underline the similarity of both approaches in that period with respect to the national identities here in Europe or in China. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Similarities and differences. Thank you so much. And now Peter Hermann will present Xiaoyang Lu.
Yeah,
Peter?
I'm here, yes, ready. And of course, I will not read the entire list of his merits. And ZHOUXIANG Lu is Associate Professor of Chinese Studies at the School of Modern Languages, Literature and Cultures. He is actually in Maynooth in Ireland based. I don't know how long, but for many years at least. And he is at least as well, just a big one thing, adjunct professor at University of Electronic Science and Technology of China. Why I pick out these two positions is actually we know since several years, and what I really want to emphasize, he's a bridge builder. This is basically his passion. This is as well his merit and talent, if you want. Wherever you come across him, knowing him, and then something pops up. In this case, the music thing. When I heard first, I said, "What else? What is next?" He is in a variety of fields active. So bridge building in this respect, active in editorial boards of journals and so on and so forth, but as well building a bridge between East and West China and Ireland. And I think this is the most important what we can say. I think it's your turn now, Zhuxiang, or I don't know the procedure.
No, it's perfect. Now he will.
Yeah.
You have the floor. Hello?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm sharing my slide. Yeah, can you see the slides?
Yes. Yes,
It's
we can
perfect.
see.
Perfect.
Yeah. So firstly, I would like to thank Valeta, Dusan, and Peter for inviting me to this great curriculum to share my research. As Peter mentioned, actually, I cover loads of topics, but my key area is nationalism and national identity from a cultural historical perspective. So I started this research project about 3 years ago after I bought a new pair of audiovisual system, and this Yellow River Piano Concerto just attract my notice. And then the first time I listened to it, it just caught me. And for me, it's such inspiring piece of work, and all the Chinese history, Chinese culture, and Chinese philosophy, and all the politics involved inside just impressed me. So I started to do research on this piece, and then later developed into a bigger project. So today's presentation is taken from a part of this greater project, and I will firstly I will talk about the background, which is music in the socialist China, in socialist era. That's the 1950s, 1960s, and 1970s, 30 years in total. And secondly, I will talk about the creation of two symphonic works. One is the Yellow River Cantata, developed in 1939 during the Second World War. And based on this work, Yin Chengzong, the pianist, he rearranged that and created the Yellow River Piano Concerto in 1969 during the Cultural Revolution. So I will explain the history and the creation of these two works. And thirdly, I will talk about the fall and the revival of the Yellow River Piano Concerto in the late 70s and into the 1980s, 1990s, and then in the 21st century to explain the impact of this piece on China, and also talk about its influence internationally. So first, music in the socialist era. After 1949, the Chinese Communist Party defeated the nationalists and they established a socialist regime in the mainland. Generally speaking, all the private ownership and non-government organizations ceased to exist. So this including all the factories and companies and social organizations, including small grocery shops. Everything became state-owned, and all the land were confiscated and became state-owned and then redistributed to farmers based on a quota system. While music experienced the same reform. All the arts troupes that used to act in cities and in villages at all levels, now most of them became state-owned arts troupes funded by the state and operated by the state. Against this background, music became part of that socialist state framework. And all the organizations that promote the music, first it's the conservatories established across China. They modeled it on the Soviet Union, universities, colleges, and music schools, the other pioneers. And then in addition to that, factories, schools, People's Liberation Army, and other various state-sponsored social institutions, they became the main players and organizers to promote music in the society, and other organizations, for example, the Communist Youth League, the All China Women's Federation, the All China Students Federation, as well as many government departments, such as the Ministry of Culture and the Propaganda Department of the United Front Work Department. They also took on the task of creating or organizing music events and to promote it among the general public through their national, regional, and local branches. And most of the music works produced in this period in the 1950s and the first half of the 1960s, they can be broadly categorized into four groups. The first groups celebrate the victory of the revolution, which is the Communist Revolution and the Second World War. And they celebrate the establishment of the new socialist state, known as the New China, in quotation marks, the People's Republic of China, while it's based on the old, in contrast to the old Republic of China, which was established by the nationalists in 1912. Some of the major works, for example, Ode to the Motherland, one of the most famous one, created in 1950s. It's all based on these themes. And then the second category, advocating for world peace, as demonstrated by the people of the world share one heart. This context, I need to explain further. The world peace, it doesn't only mean the end of the Second World War and the civil war between the communists and the capitalists and the nationalists. It traced back to the first Opium War in 1840. That's more than 100 years ago. So since that, China entered the so-called 100 years of conflict and 100 years of humiliation, one war after another, defeated over and over again. And finally, they made 1949 as a watershed moment. That's the rise of a new socialist state. They hoped to end all the chaos and conflict. So world peace and domestic stability was highly emphasized in these works. And then third category is promoting industrialization, agriculture development, socialist modernization. This is the Soviet Union became a role model for China. So learn from the Soviet Union, including socialism, including communism, and also its industrial system, modern technology, and to rebuild China from an agricultural stage into a modern industrial stage. We must transform the Yellow River, for example, and another one, The Song of Motherland, were some of the most celebrated works to show the ambition of the Chinese to totally reform China, to change the face of China, to build it into a strong industrial country that is capable of defend itself against other Western powers, industrial powers. And then the final category focus on promoting ethnic unity, including the never setting sun rising from the grasslands and meet at the York. and Xinjiang is a wonderful place, all created in this period. Because like the previous regime, that's the Republic of China regime established after the collapse of the Qing dynasty, the Chinese were always facing this dilemma. They are building a modern nation state on the ashes of a civilization state, which is the Qing dynasty, a multi-ethnic civilization state. While this nationalism was very powerful, utilized by Han nationalists to overthrow the Manchus to establish a new state, but it also posed threat. Other ethnic groups in China, they also rise in rebellion and they want to create their own nation states. So these works serves as a tool for social integration and cross-ethnic friendship. And the goal is to unite all the ethnic groups in China, including the Han, the Manchu, the Mongols, and from other ethnic backgrounds, put them under one umbrella, the so-called socialist China. And in the 1950s and early 1960s, together with the aforementioned newly created works, the Yellow River Cantata, created in 1939, became one of the most popular music works that circulated in mainland China at the time, although it was created 10 years before the establishment of the PRC. The composer on the left-hand side is Xian Xinhai, and the lyrics is written by a poet named Guang Weiran on the bottom. And this work was created during the Second World War, and the theme focus on the war of anti-Japanese aggression. So it was created by left-wing musicians and intellectuals, while they fled from the Japanese occupied regions in eastern and southern part of the country, fled all the way to the northwestern part of the country, Shanxi province. And that's where the CCP, the Communist Party, have the headquarters, right besides the Yellow River. So on the way, they witnessed the Yellow River serving as a stronghold, a natural barrier that blocked the Japanese tanks and armies from entering the heartland in the southwest and northwest region. While they were inspired by the Yellow River and to mobilize the Chinese, the whole nation, to unite against the Japanese aggression, together these two people created this work. And the photo on the right-hand side, 1939, is Xian Xinhai conducting the teachers and students of the Luxing Art Academy rehearsing the piece. And then it soon became a classic, a revolutionary classic and wartime classic that was commonly used by the communist forces and also other revolutionary forces, anti-Japanese forces, to boost the morale and to rally people around a united front formed by both the nationalists and the communists. And then in 1955, entering the new era, when the CCP, they had enough resources, and then they recreated this work now from this very basic condition in 1939. They established professional arts troops. Now they have professional musicians, they have proper equipments, and then they have film crews to create a movie based on the Yellow River Cantata. And you can see the image of the singers and the image of the real Yellow River, the Yellow River boatsman, and the valley and the waterfalls, the hookah waterfall of the river. So I'll play a short piece here, the beginning part, and you can read the recitation part and the singing part.
民族的儿女啊，谁愿像猪羊一般任人宰割？我们要抱定必胜的决心，保卫防火，为华北，为全中国。
We cannot hear
I,
anything.
yeah,
Cannot hear it.
I want to
Cannot
say
hear
that
it.
too.
It
Can
was
hear me?
only the voice. We heard only the voice, but not singing voices.
Oh, you can hear the music only.
No,
No,
we
no,
can.
no, we don't hear anything.
Okay. Yeah. That's fine. So the work you can see from the lyrics, it's focused on the war, the guerrilla warfare, and the resistance against Japan during the Second World War. And then entering the Cultural Revolution, generally speaking, in the 1950s and the first half of the 1960s, music in China developed stably, while the Cultural Revolution altered the trajectory of music development. The purpose of the revolution were twofold. First, Mao Zedong felt that he is losing power to another fraction, known as the right-wing fraction within the party, Liu Shaoqi, and he hoped to use the revolution to mobilize the ordinary people to gain political power, to reinforce his power and defeat his political enemies within the party. The second objective is to, as an idealist, he wanted to make sure that socialism and communism keep its purity in China. Otherwise, there's a big fear that socialism will be giving way to capitalism, and eventually China will turn into just another capitalist country. He doesn't want that to happen. So, like all other sectors, the music community was swept up in uphill, with the members of the rebels and the Red Guards try to attack authorities and experts in the music sector, like in all other sectors. So, how it works? Who are the experts? Mao's revolution, the Cultural Revolution, actually has two enemies. One is elitism. Another one is this meritocracy system and bureaucracy system. He believed that socialism in China or communism in China should focus on this democracy by participation, by direct participation. So the idea is that people, ordinary people, workers and farmers, people from all walks of life should directly participate in politics and to overthrow all the bureaucratic system, because all the authorities and experts, they are the elites, and they don't want the elite structure in the country. So who are the elites in the music sector? They are the famous composers, musicians, lyrists, playwrights, singers. All these were deemed as enemies. So they were brought down during the Cultural Revolution, and many of them were sent to May 7th Cartridge schools, and some of them committed suicide because of the persecution. And so music, how it served the Cultural Revolution. Basically, traditional Chinese music during the revolution, they were regarded as representation of feudalism, and that should be banned. While Western music was seen as a symbol of bourgeoisie's ideology, also should be banned. While the music from the Soviet Union, which was promoted during the 1940s and 1950s, now was viewed as revisionist and were also banned. So most traditional and modern music works, including those created during the wartime between the 1930s and 1950s, they have to be rewritten and rearranged to fit into the Cultural Revolution ideology and to implement the Maoist ideological line. And in addition, in 1964, Mao Zedong made an instruction, and here's the direct quotation: make the past serve the present, and make the foreign things serve China. So during the 10 years of Cultural Revolution, the music community adhered to this guiding philosophy or this directive. So all the music works created at the time, especially the model operas, and served the purpose to implement the Maoist ideology. And so you can see from the photos, the elements, it's traditional Chinese elements together with Western ballet and Peking opera with Western symphonic music. All this combination combined two things together. Both the Western thing and the traditional thing were rediscoursed and reinterpreted and represented to the general public. And all the story and the plot were created to serve this propaganda or this new ideological line. And now pianist Yin Chengzong is one of the Chinese musicians that went through all these periods. Born in 1941 into a rich businessman family in Xiamen, Fujian province. He was from a Christian background. His family had a Christian background. He was follower, so he was exposed to church music, and because his father is quite rich, so they had a piano at home. And he started to learn piano from a very early age. And after the 1949, after the establishment of the Communist China, his father and his wife went to Hong Kong, while his mother, which is a concubine of his father, they stayed in China and continued to live there. So he joined the preparatory school of Shanghai Conservatory of Music in 1954, and in 1958 he was sent by the authority to Vienna, and where he won first prize at the World Youth Peace and Friendship Festival. And between 1961 to 1963. He was sent by the state to the Soviet Union, and he studied at Leningrad Conservatory in St. Petersburg, and as one of the most talented Chinese young pianists. And in 1962, he won a silver medal at the second International Tchaikovsky competition in Moscow, and that made him a star back in China. While when he returned to China in 1963, he was received by Mao in Zhongnanhai, the CCP headquarters, to reflect the importance and the status that he has achieved. The Cultural Revolution also affected Yin Chengzong. By the time, as the leading, most talented young pianist, he was also regarded as an expert in the music community. So the Red Guards and the rebels came into the institution and then tried to grab him into these so-called struggle sessions to bring him down. But he had a quite good personal relationship with his colleagues. People all loved him. And so his colleagues helped him to hide away, and he survived. But he believed that that's the not way to go. He can't hide forever. So the Red Guards, all the rebels, continue to hunt him down. And instead, he did a brave decision, and it was a gamble. And he decided to move his piano with the support of his colleagues, move the piano to the Tiananmen Square, and to play the piano for the people. Because at that time, there were no more superiors, there were no more line managers. Everything is decided by the people, as according to Mao's directive for the Cultural Revolution. He believed that if the people on the street, if they love piano, then it will help piano to survive in China. Because at the time, most of the piano, they were locked up, seen as the poisonous weed of capitalist and bourgeoisie's ideology. Most of the musicians at the time in China were not allowed to perform Western music. They have to perform this this model operas and other revolutionary related music. So his effort is he attempted to save piano, which is a Western instrument, from the revolution. While the show in Tiananmen, during the show, he played one of the selected section of the model works, and he also played some of the music converted from Mao Zedong, his own poetry, and it became quite popular in Tiananmen. The second day he returned, and the third day he returned again. He was loved by the crowd. So encouraged by this success, he contacted the female lead of the Red Latin, which is one of the most popular work at the time, the model work, and together they created a new piece. It's the Legend of the Red Latin, accompanied by piano, as shown in the poster and the photo here. So it became a phenomenon at the time, supported by Mao Zedong and by the central government. So I'll try to play part of the. Can you hear that?
No,
No? Okay. Let's
it's a
try.
pity, but you shall send the material, and who desire could listen in internet.
Okay, and I'll try another way to see if you can hear it now.
Now it's okay. It was a little moment.
Can you hear it?
No, it was very short.
Yeah, we heard just the beginning, but then also the movie stopped, the video stopped. Maybe if you start again, it will be okay. Maybe.
Okay, voilà.
No, this is a problem. Don't insist.
I think,
Okay, yeah.
Professor, you can reshare the slides. You reshare the slides to include the sound from the slides.
Okay. Share
Bravo, Berry.
include. Yeah, yeah. Can I see the?
Only black slide.
Oameni care gândesc asemenea
Yeah,
lui,
now it's okay.
într-un dialog cu liderul de la Kremlin, imediat vom vedea aceste imagini. Până atunci facem zoom pe scena politică internațională. La aproape 100 de zile de la atacul americano-israelian asupra Iranului.
Oh my goodness, what is this?
No, that's another thing. Somebody has.
Yeah,
somebody should be muted.
Acordul dintre Israel și Liban, intermediat de Statele Unite.
Now, please, I
Opa
mute
Sanda,
all.
please stop.
Can you now open your microphones, because I mute all. I don't know who was speaking.
Yeah.
Opa Sanda was speaking.
You can hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. So you can see that the piece actually combined traditional Chinese opera with music, and it was supported by Mao Zedong and by the central government. So and it was regarded as a landmark achievement. And piano finally has its place during the revolution, and instead of being locked up, and or the pianists see this as a breakthrough, and finally they were able to perform. Although in a different way, they're still not able to perform Western works. While based on this success, he began to plan a piano concerto based on a modern composition. And finally, he chose Yellow River Cantata because it is one of the most important modern composition in socialist China. So a small team of musicians were assembled to help to adapt that piece for piano. And in order to do so, they also traveled to the actual Yellow River and to the Hookah waterfall, and to observe the boatsmen crossing and journeying along the river in Yan'an. And in 1969, they finished the work and named it as Yellow River Piano Concerto, which includes 4 movements, still based on the original work, but it incorporates many of the Chinese elements, for example, traditional Chinese instruments and folk song melodies, and like how combine the Western elements and the Chinese elements as according to Mao's directive to serve the revolution. And the concerto has its official premiere at the Nationalist Culture Palace in Beijing. It was prized by Premier Zhou Enlai as a great work, and then he said Xian Xinghai has come back to life. Xian Xinghai is the original composer for the piece, and the show was later adopted into a film by the China Central newsreel and documentary film studio. And so here are the photos of the film, and this is the work. Can you hear it?
No, it's a
Okay.
pity, but we
Yeah.
shall, all of us, we shall try to discover in internet.
Yeah. So at that time, when the work was created in 1969 and gained official support in 1970, turned into a film in 1971, at this time, it was also a major change happened in China. The Cultural Revolution can be divided into two phases. Phase one is from 1966 to
Excuse me,
1971.
your own microphone is not strong enough. Your voice is
Okay.
okay.
Is it better now?
Now it's better, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And the second phase started in 1971, and most of the violent struggle sessions and street movement, like the Red Guards, actually cooled down into the 1970s. And because of the Sino-Soviet split, especially the Sino-Soviet border conflict happened around the same time, Mao Zedong and the CCP leadership decided to approach the Western countries headed by the United States, and as a foreign policy or as a new strategy to contain the Soviet Union for national security reasons. So the ping pong diplomacy started in 1971, and China and America started to get into contact with each other, and then later established formal diplomatic relations following President Nixon's visit to Beijing. So music served as a diplomatic tool, while Yin Chengzong and the Yellow River Piano Concerto was placed at the central spotlight. As the British, European, and American orchestras started to arrive in China to have this music diplomacy in 1972 and 1973, and then they played Western works, and then they also played Chinese works together with Chinese musicians, and the Yellow River Piano Concerto was chosen to be the most famous one to be played during their visit. And Yin Chengzong, as the lead pianist, he played together with these Western musicians. For example, the photo on the left-hand side, it's the Vienna Philharmonic Orchestra in 1973, and the right-hand side one is the Philadelphia Orchestra conductor Eugene. He's discussing the score with Yin Chengzong and played there in Beijing. These successful diplomatic musical performances helped Yin Chengzong to establish himself as a prominent figure in both musical and political sphere. He was appointed head of Central Philharmonic Orchestra of China, and in the ensuing years, he led the Central Philharmonic Orchestra on diplomatic visits to Japan, South America, and Africa, also to European countries, with Yellow River Piano Concerto serving as his signature piece and a key component of China's cultural diplomacy. However, in 1976, after Mao's death, the Cultural Revolution ended, and Yin Chengzong was removed from his post immediately and placed under investigation because of his association with Jiang Qing, which is Mao's wife, and the Gang Four. And he was regarded as the leading figure that helped Mao and Jiang Qing and the left-wing fraction within the party to promote Cultural Revolution. Therefore, he was held in custody for over 10 months and followed by further investigation, during which his freedom was restricted. Now, the Yellow River Piano Concerto, from a diplomatic tool and from one of the most celebrated works of the Cultural Revolution, was also banned, ceased to be performed or ironed on the radio, and its records and scores were pulled from music shops and bookshops. And it was not until 4 years later, in 1980, did the investigation concluded that Yin was innocent and he was only a musician trying to play his piano. And he was subsequently allowed to resume public performances, but Yellow River Piano Concerto was still banned by the authority not to be played, and most of the works played now are Western works. Under political pressure and career setbacks, he decided to move to the United States in 1983, where he continued to play the Yellow River Piano Concerto there in Canada, in the States, and in European countries. For example, in 1992, he recorded the concerto with Czechoslovak radio symphonic orchestra and made a
Excuse me,
yeah.
Zichalu. We forgot to tell you that the 30 minutes are the limit of the
Yeah,
time limit. So, excuse me, if you continue, please, but very short, yeah? Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Now, in 1984, another pianist from China was invited by Singapore to perform the piece. They asked to perform Yellow River Piano Concerto, but this was banned in China. So he asked for the permission of the central government, and he got the approval. It was quite successful in Singapore. So returning to China, they began to rearrange the piece to make the official piece, which is they take the East is Red and the international melodies out from the original work and to fit the censorship requirement by the Chinese authority. While in 1993, 1992, after the full-scale reform and opening up started, the ideological debate in China between the left wing and the right wing was to some extent put aside. So economic development became the priority. So Yin Chengzong was invited back to China to perform his original work and became active playing around China and across the world. And into the 21st century, this work became a must-play piece for younger generations of professional pianists in China, including Lang Lang and Kong Xiangdong, to show their skills, and became quite popular both in China and internationally. And in 2021, Yin Chengzong moved back to China from the US, and during the interview in 23, he recorded that originally when he created this work, China was very poor, and so the motivation is to build a strong China, strong socialist China, but now it's a different time in 21st century. So the way he played the melody totally changed. Now the conclusion. To conclude, the rise and fall and revival of Yellow River Piano Concerto illustrates how the lives, careers, and compositions of Chinese musicians were shaped by politics and history, and how they adjust and negotiate the paths in a consistently changing political and social environment. Why Yellow River? Yellow River is regarded as the mother river of China because early Chinese dynasties were all created alongside the river because of fertilized land when primitive society moved into agricultural civilization. So when we have these labels like the yellow earth, the yellow river, and the yellow race, they all linked to the Chinese civilization. It's all about the history, about the culture. It's not only about the Yellow River Piano Concerto showing the Cultural Revolution. In the beginning, it was created based on Yellow River Cantata, which is about during the Second World, it's a wartime classic. So why it is so successful? It was successful in the Cultural Revolution, but in later decades, the discourse of this work changed both in China and around the world, especially among Chinese overseas migrants. And because it's one of the best representation of China, of especially Chinese culture and Chinese history. Just like the photo on the right-hand side, you see the bands of the Yellow River in the early reaches. It symbolized the Chinese dynasties, one after another, and the long history. And the third one, the final point, is that music play a very important part in shaping national identity and cultural identity. Benedict Anderson, he developed this printing media and imagined communities theory, arguing that during the 19th and early 20th century, the rise of printing media actually helped to disseminate the idea of national identity and national consciousness among the general public. But if you look at China, in dynastic China, most of the population, more than 95%, they can't read the characters. And all the way to the 1960s, 1950s, still more than 80% of the population, they can't read. So it's not the printing media changed everything, but music through narrative singing, through all these lyrics, through the melody combined together, they are the real thing that reached the general public, reached the grassroots level, and had its impact, either a cultural, ideological, or political impact on the grassroots level population. So hence, that's also another reason for the popularity of this work. Thank you very much.
Thank you also. We have time enough for the discussion later. And now please, Livia Teodorescu Ciocane, she will present Liliana. Livia?
Yes. Hello everyone.
Hello.
Allow me to introduce Liliana-Isabela APOSTU, and I will present a short biography. She holds a doctorate of arts from the University of Nice, and currently she is a researcher and lecturer at Aix-Marseille University. She is born in Romania into a family steeped in music and the arts. She studied violin at music high school in Iași, and then with Maestro Stefan Ruha in Cluj, winning a concert diploma. She arrived in France in 2001 after winning an international competition to join the youth orchestra in Nantes. She simultaneously pursued advanced studies in Baroque music performance with Daniel Cuillet. In 2002, she began her studies in musicology at the University of Nice, culminating in a doctoral thesis in 2010. Since 2011, she has dedicated herself to research, teaching, and performance as a concert violinist and in chamber music ensemble. Her research offers a fresh perspective on the works of 20th century composers from Eastern European countries and has gradually expanded into diverse fields within musicology, ethnomusicology, aesthetics, and music education. She collaborates with universities internationally and also in France, internationally in Germany, Romania, Tunisia, and Canada. And now we are eagerly waiting for your presentation, Liliana.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Violeta, Dusan, and Peter Herman for inviting me today. Thank you, Livia, for the presentation, and say hello to Laura Manolake, who was in my doctoral team. So, hello, everybody. Thank you to be here today with us. So I make researches on Bartok's works from 2002. At the time, I began a doctoral diploma in comparative musicology at the University of Nice in France, consecrated to the violence works of Bela Bartok and George Enescu, both born in villages of the actual Romania. Enescu in the eastern side near the town of Botoșani, and Bartok near the town of Timișoara. 6 years later, I consecrated to the study of scores, sketches, works about their composition and biography, traditional and peasant music, and the violin art from Romania. I finally finished my doctoral research in 2010 and published a book about the Romanian popular violin elements in the works of Bela Bartok and George Enescu in 2014 in Paris. Bela Bartok's compositions have for some decades been the subject of important research in Hungary and in the United States, countries where the composer spent most of his life. He was considered during his lifetime on the same level as Schoenberg and Stravinsky, and the third pillar of the aesthetic revolution of modernity in the 20th century. Moreover, ethnomusicological works hold an essential place by their quantity and quality in Bartok's production, to which are added the theoretical readings relating to Western art music. For example, Laszlo Szomfai surveyed the manuscript sources of Bartok and designed a diagram illustrating their distribution. All these texts, originally written in Hungarian, German, or English, only became available in French translation very late. Indeed, it was only in 2006 that a volume of the ratings translated and annotated by Peter Senzi, where are treated the fundamental problems related to musical language and composition of Bartok, and where is stressed the relationship between the Western art music of his time and the peasant or popular music, a relationship with that will be very important in the constitution of his musical language. Bartok is currently recognized among the major composers of the 20th century, and this repertoire is played in the four corners of the world. I will make just a little pause to send my work. and I will repair. Today I will speak only about Bartók's violin works. Composers belonging to various musical culture, mainly Germanic and French, to the European musical centers at the time, being Vienna and Paris, seek technical solution to renew the musical language. This solution will lead to a revision of the aesthetic concepts related to creation. In the 20th century, the problem of notation had repercussion on the Western art music. This notation keeps evolving with the language used by the composers. The problem is even more difficult to solve when it comes from the recorded popular or peasant music, and Bartók, the ethnomusicologist, says on this subject. When written down, peasant melodies lose precisely what they were able to offer to the musician, a lived experience. Fixed notion is not able to give us the finest nuances of rhythm or intonation that glides all the vital pulse of peasant music. Once written down, a peasant melody is no more than an allegorical sign of itself. Bela Bartok, writings by Philippe Aldera, Contrechamp Genève, 2006. Childhood and popular music. Bela Bartok was born on March 25 in 1881 in the village St. Nicolau Mare or Noge St. Miklos in Transylvania, a region located in the northwest of the actual Romania. Some musicologists, by Tiberiu Alexandru, advanced the hypothesis that Bela Bartok was born in a village whose population was mostly Romanian and that the composer's paternal grandmother, Maria Gondos, was Romanian too. In the village, other population lived here, Hungarians, Slovaks, and Germans. Most villagers didn't necessarily practice the language of the other ethnic groups. The official language was the German. Did you find? Ah, okay. Yes, thank you. Children, Bartok showed very close emotional ties with his mother and early gifts for music. He didn't speak until he is 3 years old and suffered from diseases such as eczema, pneumonia, maybe of Asperger. Very withdrawn his health, forcing him to lead a solitary life at
Can
home.
you tell me
He is
which
nevertheless
slides?
able to reproduce
I
it.
can locate it in the right slides. Which one should
Yes, just after that.
have that?
The next one.
Okay, this one, right?
Yes, I just present a little bit his childhood, and after that I will present the model scale, etc. So he has a small drum that his father gave him, and he perfects himself to such an extent that he can accompany his mother, who sings or plays popular tunes on piano. Bartok moved to Budapest in 1899 to study piano and composition. Here he discovered a whole series of Western masterpieces, but once caught up in the manifestation of nationalist tendency in Hungary, he became sensitive to this new trend and turned to the study of popular music from that country. In composition class at the Royal Academy of Budapest, Bartok began to take an increasing interest in Hungarian popular music, driven not only by musical curiosity, but also by the desire to safeguard the people's musical memory. He emphasizes the confusion that seems to reign in Budapest between a city music conveyed by the gypsy of popular allure and the true music of the peasants. Bartok becomes ethnomusicologist for Hungarian popular music thanks to his meeting with Kodai. He then pursued a real career in his writing how popular music influenced him at the level of the Western art composition. I studied my research from a purely musical point of view and only on the Hungarian linguistic territory, to continue it later with the Slavic and Romanian linguistic files. The study of this peasant music was very important to me and showed me how to freedom of the hegemony, very important to me, of the major minor system which had prevailed in the Western art music. You show now the sources of Bartok sketches by Laszlo Sanfai. So we can see in this diagram that a very big part of his work is in Hungary, and other part is now in the United States. The next slide, please. The Harvard lecture of 1943 offered only occasion on which Bartók went into significant technical details about his style. By the way, Bartók disliked to explain his own manner to compose. He says, sometimes I must state that my entire music is determined by instinct and sensibility, useless to ask me why I wrote this or that, why so and why not so. I could not give any explanation except that I felt this way, I wrote it down this way. How scales and mode and their natural combination in peasant music helps Bartók to build his own system, his characteristic style, the polymodality, and the polymodal chromaticism. The popular sources. Bartók knew well enough that his essays and lecture on the influence of folk music made him suspect, and for any musician could not hear much differences between a folk song and some typical Bartók themes. One of the reasons he also often referred to this or that theme being an original theme or one of his own inventions. He knew that musicians could not distinguish themes that came from his extraordinary knowledge of peasant music, based on field work and on sophisticated classification and analysis from tunes simply borrowed from a book, a practice Bartók despised. In a difficult historical context marked by the two world wars, Bartók was able to avoid the traps of nationalism, a mirror for the traditional music of Hungary, Romania, Slovakia, Bulgaria, Serbia, Croatia, Ukraine, Turkey, and the Arabics, to which he devotes serious ethnomusicological research. The composer will be the target of Hungarian nationalists who consider him as a traitor, while the Romanian took him for an intruder. Romanian popular music, preserved by oral transmission, the diatonic scales from the ancient Greeks, alongside the chromatic and mixed scales already existing in its own cultural heritage, are considered chromatic scale, so you can show some scale and tunes in the Gheorghe Opera classification. This scale are considered chromatic with one or more second increased, and the mixed scale are obtained by the combination of a diatonic scale and of a chromatic one. Based on the modal classification, popular melodies or tunes were classified into several categories. Emilia Comichel proposed in 1967 a systematization of the melody according to the number of elements that the modal scale contains in their structure. Comichel was a former student of Constantin Brailoiu, and she realized the collection of his writings and published the 8th volume of writings into bilingual edition in Romanian and French. She applies the method proposed by Brailoiu, and her own writings are considered as fundamental to the study of popular music scale in Romania. By the way, the pentatonic system used by Bartók, which has been the subject of numerous musicological studies, exists in Romanian popular music under two aspects: with half tones, more common in Bihor and Maramuresh, and without half tone, practiced in other regions of the country. Bartók has advances the hypothesis of a borrowing of the Romanian pentatonic scale from the Hungarian, but not some fundamental differences in the construction of the song in certain regions of Romania. In one of his lectures at Harvard, Bartók specifies that the pentatonic scale of Hungarian popular music presents 5 possible configurations, and that the last one of these would be specific to Hungarian music, while the others will be found in the music of various people in Eastern Russia and Central Asia. Can you please show the pentatonic mode given by Bartók in this writing? No, before that, after that, please, the next, yeah, maybe we can talk about 3 forms of acoustic mode you see there. And Bartók used a very specific scale, so named Bartók scale. The 7-note scale belonging to Romanian popular music are called heptatonic, and they are regrouped in the two categories, diatonics and chromatics. Among them is a scale existing in the Romanian tradition, which Bartók himself has identified as being present in the popular music of Maramureș, gradually called acoustic. Can we have another slide, please? I make a slide with a popular tune by Comichel, where we can show this acoustic scale specific to popular musical instrument, mouth harp, played in Maramureș. This scale is a natural harmonic of fundamental sound which continually vibrates like a bumblebee, and this accompanies the main melody. Bartók has collected some melody for this instrument, but it appears that in some transcription he omitted to indicate the alteration specific to the scale. I don't know if you can find this, Violeta. No, this is diagram. I will just.
This is a Landwehr then.
No, Landwehr is then. Maybe it's before.
Later, yeah. Proportion, okay.
Yeah. Okay. There we can see the pentatonic scale given by Bartók in this writing. He used different form of pentatonic in his compositions. The acoustic mode has a characteristic intervals, a major third, and at the base, an augmented fourth between the first and fourth degrees, and a minor seventh formed by the first and seventh degrees. From popular scales to a new universal language, we propose to see how, in some violin composition, the study and the integration of elements belonging to popular music allowed Bartók to develop an original musical language. The genesis and evolution of the musical language will be considered from two important points: the form of modernity that asserted himself in the field of composition during the first half of the 20th century, and this discovery of a language more specific, influenced by the peasant music. Some theories were developed by many searchers or musicologists, among them Landwehr and his theory about symmetries in Bartók's system and scales. Among the first, now you can show us the configuration of Landwehr, please. This was the tune in acoustic mode, recorded transcriptive for Bartók in Transylvania, yeah, I just spoke about. And after that, we can see a slide with the Landwehr configuration. Next one, no. This one with, no, maybe you show us Landwehr diagrams. No. Yeah.
This one, yeah.
This one. So, among the first theories who formulated hypotheses in relation to the structuring of musical material in Bartók's is Erno Landwehr. According to him, Bartókian harmony is the result of a double compositional approach, one of chromatic nature, structure according to the golden number, and the other side of diatonic nature, resulting from the system of harmonics. The patterns called by Landwehr 1, 2, 1, 3, and 1, 5 are sequences of notes obtained by repeating intervals of minor second, major second, minor third, and minor second right fourth. The numbers 1, 2, 3, 5 represent the number of half tones that each interval has. Landwehr's reflection is based on mathematical calculation such as the Fibonacci series. The models already mentioned will come directly from this series. The scales reveal symmetries that have been related to cyclic diagrams of the 12 chromatic notes or to cyclic diagram of right fifths. Chilax explained the fact that the symmetry of these Landwehr scales make them resemble to exact divisions of the octave or equidistant modes, also very common in Bartók. the tone scales, the diminished seventh chord, the augment fifth chord, the tritone interval, and of course the chromatic scale itself. And he pushed the intellectual speculation of this predecessor even further, proposing to test all possible scales thus obtained. He used for that the wartime program and gates that he calls invariant scales. Aspect Mathematique in the scale of Bartók by Pierre Chilag. Laszlo Sonfai set out to analyze the primary sources of Bartók's composition and noted the following fact. Hundreds of little arithmetic calculations and group of numbers in Bartók's handwritings occur at the back of folk music notebooks, in the margin of a draft of an article on music paper, with or without music on it, on scrap papers. American theory notes. Other researchers were interested in the abstract techniques of Bartók. It is a group of Americans constituted by Leo Traylor, Colin Mason, Alan Forte, and George Pearl, who attached themselves since the 1950s to use the terminology and analytical foundation of Schoenberg's 12-tone theory to analyze Bartók's work, based on the idea that he at one time followed a similar approach to the Viennese composer in the first concerto for violin, the Love Theme. This study demonstrated that at the same time as the tendency toward the equalization of the 12 degrees of the chromatic scales, collection of pitch classes appear in his work as a means of characterizing musical texture, but above all as the structurating elements, this formation contributing to the organization of a musical space marked by the dissolution of tonal functions. The most significant of these studies remains that which Pearl published in 1955 in the Music Review under the title Symmetrical Formation in the String Quarter of Bela Bartók. Pearl's thesis rests on the idea that Bartók's compositional technique is based on the presence of axes of symmetry operating as possible tonal centers. The theory of Pearl was further developed by Anto Collet, who asserts that a generalized tendency toward the equalization of the 12 half tones of the chromatic scale is already apparent in several Western composers from the end of 19th century, and that this trend results in the gradual appearance of high-class collections in the respective works. These are so-called pitch class collections, considered as new structuring elements in music based on the dissolution of tonal function. Anto Collet explained, concomitant with the tendency to equalize the 12 tones, symmetrical pitch collections began to appear as textural devices or local structural elements. Bartók employed symmetries on all levels of his music, led to a new sense of a pitch class priority. Another searcher was Karpathy, who advanced the theory. The scales used by Bartók have also interested other researchers. Hungarian musicologist János Karpathy was proposed a possible explanation for the genesis of octotonic scale. Can you show us, please, Violeta, the octotonic scale?
Yeah.
No. This one, please. No.
Before.
The
next. It's Barry who is orchestrating this. The next one.
Next one, please. No.
Next. This
one. Okay, thank you. So he said that the explanation for the genesis of octotonic scale based of the phenomenon of detuning or mistuning consists in increasing or decreasing by arc tone structure that are based on an octave or a perfect fifth. The most remarkable case being that in which the two tetrachords constituting the diatonic scale are inscribed within a diminished octave, the effect produced being that obtained by tuning the neighboring strings of violin, for example, no longer according to the interval of a right fifth, but by lowering the upper string or raising the lower string by half a step, according to the interval of a diminished fifth. Now I will give you my thesis about the views of certain interval configuration in violin. Among the phenomena observed in the study of the musical practice of popular performers on the violin, we have noticed at the level the views of the left hand the extension of the fingers in a fixed position by sliding the finger between the half position in order to reach notes extending the right, fourth, or the octave, which is not really obtained on a string or on two adjacent string between the first and the fourth finger, as well as the retractation of the finger to play shorter interval. Can we please see the slide with the contrast example? Yeah, you can see there how we can use in the same position the extension and the retractation to attempt some intervals. Beginning of the contrast violin part illustrating the possibility to play the first measure using the fingers of the left hand in a tight position, then spread apart in fixed position, respectively the second and third. Other intervals can be obtained by extension and retraction of the fingers between two neighboring strings. A diminished ninth is obtained between the first finger pressed on the string and the fourth spread, as we have previously described, to obtain a tritone on the neighboring upper string. An augmented seven or diminished octave is obtained by retraction of the distant finger, also placed on two neighbor ropes. In the first movement of Bartók's contrast, the violinist achieves very interesting chord formed by overplaying intervals obtained by placing the fingers of the tight left hand in a fixed position. Tritone, diminished octave, tritone minor sixth, tritone minor seventh, tritone augmented seventh. Another characteristic example appears in the contrast on page 13 of the violin score, where Bartók used the two intermediate strings of the instrument. In this passage, starting from the ninth interval obtained between the reopen string and the fourth finger placed in the first position.
Liliana, excuse me. It's very late. We had this problem,
okay.
the technical one. So
Yeah.
if you could just continue very, very short, because we need also some discussion.
Yes. So
okay.
I just
2 minutes, 2 minutes, please.
Bartók disliked to explain his manner to compose, so a lot of musicologists tried to describe how he did it. So I just propose my own manner after regarding sketches, playing violin. So if you have just 5 minutes, I can show you with my violin some example. And thank you for your invitation.
We thank you. You shall send us the material so we shall have the possibility to see all. And now I would like to open the discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Please, first I would like to say myself something. Lendvai was one who his whole life made the analysis of Bartók, and he discovered incredible things, but we do not know if Bartók had this way of thinking. But it was anyway a very special experience. I would like to ask, and Dusan, please, you can help me also, and also Livia and Peter, in order to discover who would like to say something. We begin with the discussion. And if I do not discover who would like to say something, Klaus Meinzer, please. Thank you.
My point was very short. First of all, it's so pity that we could not enjoy this wonderful music, especially of Bela Bartok, so I could enjoy it only from a mathematical point of view. I know that, but now I learned more about that. The 20th in the last century, that was exactly the time when in mathematics the group theory came up. That means modern algebra, which was in the center interested in the symmetries.
Yeah.
And in my first academic life, I was engaged in symmetry. And you show that with the circle, you know. That means the idea that symmetry is invariance of structures. The configuration remains the same, but there are transformations, but nevertheless, with respect to these transformations, the structure remains unchanged. And that is the abstract idea. And here in the music, you showed the symmetry. And on the other side, symmetry is reduction of complexity. And I think that was the main idea of Bela Bartok. He was motivated in the beginning by the national peasants' music and even by some political ideas. But then in the end, he finds these general simple structures absolutely fascinating because symmetry, since the antiquity, is also a symbol for, in some sense, harmony and balance and beauty. And so it's so pity that we could not hear it. And I could only mathematical, but that is a very abstract music. Thank you.
Yeah, because we have no time to expose all the ideas. So sorry, I do what I thought important for today.
But you
Thank you.
promised to play some part of it, though. You
Yeah,
have your
if
violin
you
there.
want, I can play maybe the first Rhapsody. I love a lot. So you can discover by hearing how Bartok used the scales. Okay, okay.
Can you do that?
That's a good idea.
Very good idea.
Let's hear something.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Bravo, bravo.
Thank you.
Very good.
We certainly heard some symmetries there.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But a question, was Bela Bartok aware of these development in mathematics in that time? Because you mentioned the symmetry analysis. Was he aware of that, or was it intuitively by him?
He says it was intuitively, but Solfaing discovered a lot of mathematics drafting on the scores, so we can know really how he did it. Maybe he discovered the intervals, the combinations of sounds, and how you tell us the beauty of the symmetry intuitively, maybe.
I think that it's a fascinating question because we do not know if Bartok knew about sexua aurea and if he knew about if he used it. Anyway, Landwehr discovered for example, in the only 17 measures, he discovered the utilization of Fibonacci series 7 times. 7 times in 17 measures. So it is not only intuition here. We can expect that something very strange happened. Anyway, it's very because Fibonacci was to be found only in this melodical and also harmonical structure and also in orchestration. The moment when new instruments comes, it was exactly in the moments of the sexua aurea. So inside sexua aurea plus minus, and then inside plus you have plus minus, inside plus you have plus minus, inside minus you have plus minus, and so on, only in 17. And Landwehr discovered absolutely all over the music of Bartok such strange application of Fibonacci.
Thank you.
Livia?
May I say something?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you hear me? Yes. Okay. I would like to share a memory with Professor ZHOUXIANG. I'm sorry if I cannot pronounce correctly. I was very impressed with your presentation about the Chinese Cultural Revolution, and I remembered a story told by a now very, very famous composer, Chinese composer, but established in United States. It's about Tan Dun or Tan Dan. He is a very famous now composer, writing operas and symphonies. So he in 1996, I happened to be in Great Britain, and he told us about his experience. He was cultivating rice or something. He was it was band to play music, to compose music. So it was, I was absolutely impressed with his story, and now I made connections with what you told us so well, and we understood exactly the history of the ideas of the Chinese society. So could you tell us if you know about Tan Dun, and if you know if he suffered from Cultural Revolution, how he escaped? I don't remember what he said, or maybe he didn't.
Yeah, thank you for sharing the news. I'm not familiar with Tan Dun, but he is one of the most celebrated composer in contemporary China, especially from the 1990s. Yin Chengzong would be from the earlier generation. So Tan Dun was born in the late 1950s. So during his childhood, his teenage years, that's when the Cultural Revolution happened. So in the first phase of the revolution, actually the university were stopped recruiting students. So and the secondary schools and primary school all ceased function. So Tan Dun is one of the. Hello?
Excuse me,
Yeah.
I try to discover who is making noise.
Oh,
Can you please
yeah.
unmute yourself again? Do you understand who is making noise?
I don't know. So
I shall mute all, and now
yeah.
you have to unmute yourself in order to,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know who is. Please now, can you unmute yourself and continue to speak? Yeah.
Yeah. So Tan Dun, his generation suffered from this, the collapse of the education system. So he was one of the so-called educated youths to be sent into the countryside to live together with the farmers and work on the rice paddies, to be re-educated in quotation marks by the proletarian. And it was not until the early 1970s and mid 1970s they returned to the city. So I'd say it was what happened during that time. It is a disaster for the music community in total. But there are some people who managed to survive, like Yin Chengzong himself. He navigated his own way while trying to protect the piano. While has to follow the official directive from Mao to work his way out to continue to play music. And back in the 1970s, then it was relaxed control, but still it's still part of the Cultural Revolution era, still very ideology focused, all this music. Yeah. Hopefully I answer your question.
Thank you very much. Bostian would like to.
Yes,
Professor Stroh is also here. Wonderful. Bostian wanted to.
Yes.
Please, Bostian.
Yes. Hello to everyone. I have a question for Professor ZHOUXIANG Lu, and I'm very impressed by his lecture. Also impressed by his courage to talk analytically and without cover about very cousinous problems of China's society. Just to say that there's a main difference between people. So there are some that have been educated, and so we have some people that have lived in the totalitarian system. Unfortunately, I was also among them, and others who lived in democracy from the very beginning. So I was very young, but I feel very much it's someone from the West cannot imagine what happened during the communist era. But I have a very concrete question about to what extent the revolutionary music during the Cultural Revolution became really a genuine part of everyday culture, and to what extent it formed a sort of political mobilization or social control. So how much did it really affect ordinary people in their ordinary life, in their ordinary things, and doing ordinary things and so on? Or it was just, how to say, an abstract parade for the new class, for the leading party officials? Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question. There are two pictures during this period. So one is in the city, so the urban residents, which compose most of the majority of the population. So all the model works and revolutionary music created during the Cultural Revolution, like Mao Zedong, his poetry was converted into music, popular music. And the model works, there are more than 10 of them. And also together with Yin Chengzong, his piano concerto, were frequently played by the radio. And it's part of the everyday life. And the model opera, for example, it's not only professional arts troupes, they play them. At the grassroots level in local communities, people were also encouraged or mobilized to learn to sing and to play and doing work breaks to promote this kind of work. And the model works especially because they have lyrics. It's based on ballet and drama and combined with Peking opera and modern music, Western music, all the elements. So it became the most popular. And because of its presentation, the way it was disseminated and practiced by the general public. It has a huge impact on the Cultural Revolution generation. So those we're talking about the people born in the 1950s, 1960s, and 1940s. And the legacy, one of the legacy is that in contemporary China, that's my parents' generation, right? You see an interesting phenomenon. Some of the gatherings for the older generations, they dress up still like these old uniforms, and they still, when they meet up, they still sing this Peking opera, these model works, because that's their teenage years. That's the memory from the Cultural Revolution. But I would say, like in my last slide, I try to conclude how important is music to disseminate or to instill identity and ideology among the general public. There's another theory by American sociologist Michael Billing. He created the theory, the banal nationalism or banal ideology. So many of the ideology or nationalist ideas, political ideas, actually they were not instilled to people by these strong statements or articles or whatever posters, but it's actually this seems that non-political mediums or media actually played its part. And some of the music works, they have nothing to do. There's no lyric about politics, about culture. It's just melodies. But those melodies play its parts, like the Yellow River Piano Concerto. So if you analyze the melody, it is about the boatsman chant. It is about the tide of the Yellow River, the Hukou waterfall, how powerful the water is, and it's about the flooding. And it also is about how peaceful it became when it emptied into the sea in the eastern coast in China. But it is all these elements together, they worked together with the Cultural Revolution that influenced ordinary people's mindset. Another way how music played its part is that the majority of the educated youth, the young people, students, because universities closed down and schools closed down, they were sent to the countryside to live together with the farmers, just like the composer Tan Duan. And in the countryside, they don't have entertainment. It's either to work on the rice paddy or to sleep. And there's no books. Books were also banned, either Soviet books or Western books or traditional Chinese books. So one of the few ways for entertainment, it's sport and music. So that's during the period when Western sport, table tennis, soccer, basketball, and Western instruments like violin and piano, all these were introduced to the wider public, especially the young generation. That's become part of their life. So I would say silently or kind of in a very different way, not that politically, but all these ideology were already embedded.
There are also some other questions. May I just short interrupt you? Xiao Huang, thank you both for the interesting talks. I have one question for Professor Lu. Since you mentioned the revival of the Yellow River Piano Concerto, how do you see its influence in modern Chinese music in the future?
Thank you. That's a great question. Can be very long, so I try to make it short. First, the most important thing I want to emphasize is that Yellow River, this is a cultural icon. It's a part of the identity of the Chinese, together with the Great Wall and Confucianism and Taoism. So Yellow River Piano Concerto is one of the works based on Yellow River. There are plenty of other works from the dynastic China into the contemporary times, into the modern era. So it's still, this particular piece is still regarded as the most important piano concerto to date in China. There are many, many attempts made by Chinese composers and pianists or musicians try to create something greater than this one, but they are still on the way. So I would say it's still the benchmark there. And because of its, not only, I would say it's not because of its influence during the Cultural Revolution. It's more about where it comes from. It's based on Yellow River Cantata. That's a wartime classic. But how they created that wartime classic in 1939, that Yellow River Cantata actually is based on what they've already created during the dynastic China. It is a collective memory accumulated over the course of time, and the end result is the cantata and the piano concerto.
Wonderful. I have also another question, but I would like to tell you that in that time, Livia Teodorescu was too young, but at that time we were all scared in Romania that maybe we have to do the same thing. I just tell you. That is so crazy. But I have another question from Luca Pisano. Thank you very much, Professor Lu Xiaohuang, for your very interesting presentation. I was wondering whether in the course of your research on the Yellow River Piano Concerto and Yin Chengzong, you have also considered the figure of the pianist Liu Shikun and his role in this context, especially given that he and Yin Chengzong belong to almost the same generation.
What I want to emphasize is that the piece was rearranged, but Yin Chengzong was the lead artist or pianist. It was a team collectively created this work. There are other leading famous pianists at the same time who contributed to this project. I'm not familiar with the particular pianist that you mentioned, but during the Cultural Revolution, what I can say is that overall, this is a survival strategy for musicians, and many of them actually they don't even have the opportunity to stay in the city and continue to play music. They were sent into the countryside, never touch piano for more than 10 years. So those who survived through different ways, like Yin Chengzong, it was a gamble for him. He later recalled that if my parents, if my relatives know that I was going to move the piano to the Tiananmen, they will stop me because I could be beaten to death by the rebels at Tiananmen. But I took that risk because I don't want to give up my music. So he was successful, but later he paid the price. In the 1980s, he was banned and investigated and etc. It's very difficult for these musicians to kind of, they can only navigate, they can only negotiate what they can do in a limited environment.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you very much. I must tell you, before I invite Peter to ask something, I was very impressed with the music of the Three Kingdoms, as I told you before, the series of several films in China, made in China in 2011, after this novel of the Middle Ages. So the music is fantastic, and I just wanted to tell you I would like to communicate with you more about this music. And now I would like to invite Peter. Peter Hermann.
First, a little remark. There is in the chat, for those who don't read it permanently, there are 3 links to the music. You can check for the Yellow River. My point is more a general one. The role of music, the role of arts and politics. From a little book, Ken Loach, Edouard Louis, Dialogue sur la politique. The quote is, art arises out of kind of rage against art, not when it serves as a self-gratification tool for the ruling class. So it is not only the internal communication within arts, but as well this link to politics. And in a more subtle way, from Daniel Barenboim, all progress is, in fact, having the courage to do away with the support of the past. Look at the switch from Bach on the one hand to Haydn, Mozart, Beethoven on the other hand, and then from Haydn, Mozart, Beethoven to Wagner. You could say that you could rely on God in Bach's time, and Beethoven's time you couldn't rely on God anymore. You had to rely on mere mortals. And Wagner says you can't even do that. We have to cast new kind of human being. And I think this is interesting in the case of both presentations, actually, that on the one hand, innovative music, innovative pieces of arts seem to have this challenge. We do not conform with what is, and at the same time, they are linking to existing tradition, and then they make a step forward, in a way, avant-garde, playing the role of an avant-garde. in terms of changing the understanding of arts, understanding of the nation state or nationality, and then actually being tradition themselves. I think this is, or not, I think this is for me at least a permanent tension where I see the development of arts, if you want, in this case music, of integrating and developing something new, going beyond what exists. This is something, and if you look at the musicians I just mentioned from the West, Beethoven to Wagner, they had been at least at some stage not accepted. They had been discriminated. They had been not listened to. And now it's kind of popular music in the classical sector, if you want. So in this way, repercussion, what you just said at the end, now it is allegiant. Nobody can go without referring to the Yellow River. They may try to do something else, but they don't reach this level anymore. So it's more a comment, but it's as well a question in terms of what do you see in terms of the general politics, political standing of arts, of music?
Yeah, thank you, Peter. I think if we trace back to history, let alone this Yellow River Piano Concerto, one of the first Chinese collection of folk song and music, the Book of Poetry, right? Many of the works actually are loaded with political ideas. It is because of the transformation from primitive society to feudal society, then you start to have feudal class. You started to have this exploitation from those who control the land and resources, and the civilians working all the time, and they are not happy about the reality. And then moving into each time period throughout dynastic China to contemporary times, many of the music works and dramas, for example, it's full of politics. So I would say there are three types of music. First, politics related, ideology related throughout history. That's took a dominant position. And another section is folk songs about love and personal relationship. That's another section. And the third pillar would be those who prize the nature, prize the natural beauty of the universe, etc. So politics from the beginning, very beginning, it's one important supporting pillar of this area. That's my short answer to this. Thank you.
Thank you also very much. I have also another information from the chat. Sorry, my Mac does not work. I could say something on the Yellow River. In the early 70s, we were astonished about the 19th century style of the music. I was member of a Maoist group. We liked Eisler, Agitprop, but could not become warm with the Yellow River. We did not discover the national background. The music was not apt for revolutionary in Germany. I think it's Professor Wolfgang Martin Stroh who wrote this, and maybe he doesn't have a really micro. And then Liliana-Isabela, it is played with this concerto in competition in China. A question from Liliana: is it difficult to play the concert?
Yeah, I would say I asked some of the colleagues works in the music conservatories in China. They said yes, it's extremely difficult to play, so it still hold its place to present day. And as I said, just like in the slides I show you, Lang Lang and Li Yundi and all these new generations of Chinese piano masters. Every one of them, they have to play this work to show off their skills. And to convince the audience that they are the elite pianist. So that's a threshold to go beyond that. Yeah.
I think it could be so interesting to compare what happened in the communist countries at that time. Anyway, I repeat, in the 70s, we were all very scared that it could be possible for us. And we had also a delegation from 10 young composers from Russia. They came to Bucharest and they presented us only political music, and it was horrible. And we were very scared, and we presented only normal music. I could say it was paradise in comparison, atmosphere paradise in Romania in comparison with what happened in Russia at that time. And we were scared because it was not our soul, musical soul, couldn't have resonance with such kind of music.
Thank you for sharing.
It's a very difficult subject. And I just asked now Barry to maybe to make a comment, and she told me, and I understand this is such a complex topic. And so we open a very, very large door to very strange thing, and it's difficult. And as I told you, the music of this incredible three kingdoms has also the power of something you could call revolutionary, or whatever. I don't know if it's correct to say communist music, but it has such a element, but this element has a majestic expression. So it's interesting to discover the source of such an expression.
One comment I want to make is that even in contemporary China, even today, when we talk about Yin Chengzong and this work, it's still, although it was widely played, right, and there's no restriction, but it's still a highly sensitive issue if you try to talk about the politics and history and ideology behind the music. It's okay for you to enjoy the music for competitions, for performance, but if you go and dive into this ideological debate between the left wing and the right wing, which is still ongoing in China, music is still part of that front. That how sometimes it can become very intense, both in the academic community and among the general public.
Indeed.
Because of its the complexity.
Anyway, it's a question of authenticity. So a real artist has to be very honest with his own feelings. So in order to, so I would like to ask Livia if she has something to say in this direction. But anyway, it's a very complicated subject in order to understand what really has to be understood here. On the other hand, if I think on the Romanian music, for example, composers wrote fantastic music, used incredible texts we didn't like, but if you switch the texts, you discover the music, it is possible to change the message of the music. So I remember so many choral pieces, for example, from Alexandru Pașcanu. You just have to change the words and to discover the most beautiful music.
I would like to add something, Professor Lu. Last week, I attended a concert here in Bucharest. It was an international festival, World Music Days of contemporary music. And one of the best pieces, orchestral pieces, was written by a Chinese. He attended the concert, and the piece was perfectly in the aesthetics of contemporary European music, very modern, but also with some flute melody in pentatonic style in a Chinese. A very slight flavor of Chinese music, but then he embraced completely the modern aesthetics of contemporary European music. So I think somebody asked what is the future of Chinese music. I think they joined the main river of contemporary music.
Absolutely, you are right, Livia. It's a question of signature. If you recognize some elements bringing you, suggesting you such a source, as you told us about pentatonic. But
Yeah,
if
but
you recognize,
very slight pentatonic.
so you discovered a signature.
melody.
I don't know
Yes.
because I was not at this concert, so I didn't. But if you discovered a signature, in fact, with extended techniques, you may still have signature.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is important. And if we think of other composers, but Tan Dun, for example, you spoke about Tan Dun. Tan Dun is very American. He became very American. You do not feel any in last pieces of him. I heard some. We made also analysis of his music some more years ago, but now he became very American. So
he was already in 90s. Yes, he emigrated. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's very late. It's 9 o'clock.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And we can,
and I have the feeling that it's just only the beginning of our discussion. So we are, I like this, we do not look for special topics. We are just open to possibilities of our dates. Anyway, in 2 weeks, we have Hui Yu and Bostian Marco Turk. So we have on the 19th of June, and then we shall have only on the 3rd of, we have only two colloquium more. Thank you so much, and I would like to invite Klaus to say, please unmute yourself,
I
Klaus.
will be very short. I learned a lot this evening. Thank you so much. But the last point and the essential point from the academic, from our academy, is, I think, again, the similarity. Because Bela Bartok, as well as this music, this revolutionary music, they started with typical development in the early 20th, a kind of national identity, seek for identity. But then they developed in different ways. And the political way you discussed in China, but then in the Western tradition with Bela Bartok, and that is absolutely amazing, that we see simple melodies. He opened a new world of musical structures, and that makes Bela Bartok so great on the Western part. But also I learned a lot on the Chinese music, and thank you very much.
We thank you and see you again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Loretta. Bye. Thank you very much.